Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I help people using a spiritual perspective. I'm a spiritual guide, a grounded spiritualist, and other things as well. I'm also a pasty white boy. And today I'm going to be doing a demonstration, and I hope that this is helpful. I got my little cups already, and I'm going to be demonstrating desperation, what it looks like, and I'm going to be using these cups as metaphors. Okay, so hopefully we'll be able to follow along. I think it's pretty simple. I practiced it a little bit before making this video. The only thing that I think might get in the way is the ratio and how this is all picked up on the camera. But I have like a towel, I'm wearing some shorts because I'm probably gonna get wet, and not in a very fun way. But I do think this will be a helpful demonstration because I want to show what desperation looks like and sort of why, of course, we do it so much and why it never works, basically, right? Why desperation doesn't work. Okay, so this demonstration should be pretty hands-on. It's something new. I haven't done this before, but we're going to be using these cups. This cup is representing absolutely nothing. This is just the water that I'm going to be using to put into these other cups, so ignore that. But these cups are going to be representing individual things. Okay, so first we are going to start with yellow cup and a purple cup. Okay, now desperation, just before we begin, is essentially, in my own words, doing whatever it takes to get a desired result. Okay, so we act desperate when we really, really want something, even if the thing that we want may not be good for us. That has nothing to do with the act of desperation. Desperation is simply us really desiring something beyond the limits of what we would normally do, right? So when we get desperate, we essentially do things that we wouldn't normally do. Now, sometimes this does involve getting outside of our comfort zone and actually taking action towards things. But we're not going to be talking about that type of desperation. That's almost more stress-related, outside of your comfort zone stuff. We're going to be talking about the desperation that makes us make very silly mistakes and results in us not getting what we want, and we just end up frustrated. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about that desperation, which is most of the desperation that we're familiar with. Okay, so we're going to be starting with these two cups. Okay, so this little cup represents, let's say, your desire. Okay, so this is the object of your desire. This is a relationship. This is love. This is a career, a job, a person, a friend, an idea, a spiritual enlightenment. This represents the object of your desire. Now keep in mind the size of the cups, we're going to get into that later, but this is the object of your desire. This, and I'm going to put water into this represents your emotional capacity to fill that desire. So your energy, so to speak, right? So this is your emotions, this is your object of your desire, okay? Now let's say that we fill up your emotions here, water representing emotions. We fill it up, let's just say, it doesn't really matter how much we fill it up, halfway about, okay? So, keeping that in mind, we have half full cup of your emotions, and we have the empty cup of your desire, your object you desire. So, for the sake of this video, let's say that this is a relationship. This is a love-related question. So, you want a love relationship, and this is the size of your cup, which represents your ability to hold that object of your desire. And this is your emotions, right? So, backing up a second, I want to show you exactly, and I'm just going to go off screen here and put a towel on the ground because don't want to ruin this carpet. I might ruin the carpet, but so I want to show you exactly what desperation looks like. So, right, you have your cup, empty cup of your object, your desire, so the relationship, and then you have your emotions. So you have what you want to give to that relationship. So this is your person, Jessica or David, whatever, two generic ass names, okay? So this is the person, these are your emotions. And desperation, the act of it, looks like this. That's desperation. It's messy, you don't fill the cup all the way up. It's all over the place, right? You can see it's shaking, and it's a fast sort of motion. It's desperately trying to get to that desire, right? So that's desperation, right? Now, the size of the cup means that your desire can only fill sort of a halfway point, right? So you notice that your emotional capacity, what you wanted to give to this sort of object, what you wanted to give to this, was way more than it could hold, right? And that's really what desperation is. It's the too much into a container that can't hold it. So it's too much emotions into an object that cannot contain those emotions that you're giving it. So you have too much emotion, so you don't know what to do with them. You really, really want something. You have all of these emotions and you want to put it into a relationship. But the cup doesn't get filled all the way up. There's a lot of mess. The action of getting them there is very messy. It's not a clean process. And so what ends up happening is that you basically spill the relationship. You spill the desire and you're not able to get it. And it leads to frustration, right? So what happens then if it's the other way around, right? What happens if this is the emotion that you're wanting to give into something and this is the object of your desire? So what happens then, right? So we take a little bit of water, your emotions again, fill it halfway up. I suppose I didn't really need to empty the cup. And now we have the same thing, right? So now we have the actual object of your desire being much larger. So keeping in line with this relationship, you really, really desire the relationship. You have a lot of room for the relationship, I should say, right? There's a lot of room to work with. Now before, when this was the relationship, the object you desire, it was a small container. There wasn't that much room for your emotions. But now let's say there's tons of room. You're an open book. You're ready to love. You've got a ton of space inside of your heart for these emotions. But then what happens? Desperation. You don't have a lot to give. You don't have a lot to give this specific thing. So even though it's a big cup and the chances of your emotions getting inside of it are really well, for whatever reason there's this desperate attempt when you're not ready, because desperation is a sense of timing. You're not ready for something in particular, so now you desperately go, right? And again, you spill, you get shit everywhere, it's a messy process. But then the most important thing is it doesn't actually fill all the way up, right? You don't actually get as much as you should have. And so a lot of the time what happens with desperation is you're not in a position to receive and you're not in a position to give. And that's what desperation looks like. It looks like a constant flip-flop of one or the other. And the first example was obviously you were able to give, but you weren't able to receive, right? Because your object, your desire was too small. And in this example, it's the opposite. You were able to receive, but you weren't able to give. And so desperation comes out of this attempt to fill sort of our cups, fill this idea of ourselves, even though we aren't particularly at the time that would be beneficial to having those things fulfilled, right? So when this is all filled up in that first example, you care so much. You care a lot. And it's too much. And so because you care, the size of your cup essentially shrinks. The more that you want something, the more that you put this energy into it, the more water that's in this cup, the size of your, the goal, the size of your object of your desire gets smaller. So the more that you want a relationship, the capacity to actually have one shrinks. And that's sort of what desperation is. And then, of course, the opposite. The more that you're ready to have it, the more that the more open, the more willing you are to receive, something else happens. If you focus on that too much, now the size of your emotions, the ability to give to it, right? And that's why so many times you hear this, you hear those statements that go around, and it's not true of everybody, but it's a generic statement, is that like, when they want you, you don't want them, and when you want them, they don't want you, right? Going with this love example. And that's it's true a lot of the times, but that's the reason for it. That's the exact reason for it. And both of those are sort of a sense of desperation, right? Now what happens when what desperation, when it basically stops working, right? Is eventually there's a pause, there's taking a step back, and that's what needs to be done. And what happens as a result of that is you have an equal give and take. You have two equally sized containers. You have a balanced energy. One is able to receive properly, the other is able to give properly. So, your desire, the object you desire, the ability to love a relationship you want. Nice, calm, steady, slow, regulated, healthy. And then it feels good, it feels better, it's more smooth. There's no mess, no need for a towel. It's a completely organic, natural experience. Now, ideally what happens is that you have something in the cup to begin with, right? You have something here already. There's no, and that's, again, a huge part of desperation is there isn't something already available within the cup. But here you have two examples of, two capacities, two containers, both equal amounts, right? So your ability to give and your ability to take, receive, are equal. So if you put them back in the cup, and this is your object you desire, and this is your ability to give to that desire, there's something already in it. Put some water in there, your emotions, and you're able to add more to it. And that's essentially what relationships are supposed to be like. They're supposed to add to your life. They're not supposed to solve all your problems, right? So that is essentially what desperation looks like. It was a messy experiment. Maybe I should have done some more practice videos, but I do hope that had some element of help, because that was messy. That was a messy metaphor. But I think it makes sense, all things considered. And the idea, of course, behind all of this is that the reason you don't get what you want out of desperation is because you're not able to have an equal give and take between things. So the more that you try to get something, it often eludes you. And when you don't care about getting it, or you don't even want it, it often comes into your life. And there's no real way to trick the universe or to trick yourself into getting what you want by pretending you don't care. It has to come from basically from a neutral space. It has to come from a place where you're not trying, where you're not attempting anything. And what that looks like is two empty cups. Two empty cups. That's, you take a step back. Taking a step back is a neutral way. And then both of your cups are empty. And then you decide as an individual, as an internal being, what to add to this cup and what the object of your desire is going to be. That takes some reflection. The only way to stop these desperate attempts at sort of controlling everything is to take a step back and realize what would be beneficial to put into this cup. Again, your desire. What would be the point of this? Is it, should I be putting that much into it? Should it be a bigger cup? Should it be a smaller cup? And then what is it that I want to put it into? So is it a loving relationship? Because if a loving relationship, I notice that I don't have this much love for that. My desire for a relationship seems to be much bigger, and it can't fit into that cup. So it ends up being desperation. So it's a way of knowing that maybe that isn't what I'm supposed to be focusing on right now. Maybe that is just going to end up being an act of desperation. You can sort of tell already before it begins. But maybe it's okay, well, I noticed that, well, that's too much. That'll be a desperate act if I do that. Well then, my career or, my health or something like that. Let's take health, right? I think I can put a healthy amount of energy towards health. My desire to get healthy is there, but it also can fit the container. Sure, I have more desire for a love relationship, but the container that would hold that is much smaller. So it's going to end up being desperate. But if the container matches the thing that you're giving towards that container, if it's the same size and the same sort of energy that's being put towards it, you're going to have something that's healthy. It's going to be natural and organic. So if you have not a big, huge desire to get healthy, but a healthy amount to get healthy and the ability to receive that healthy energy, you're going to get more out of that, rather than a huge desire for a relationship and a small ability to actually receive that relationship, right? So this is why desperation does not work. It is why you have to take a step back to understand your interests, to understand what's best for you, and to see your container and your ability to give to that container. So your desire and the object of your desire. So keep that in mind. If the object of your desire is too small for your desires, it's going to be desperate. And if your desire is overwhelmingly huge, right, then you're going to notice a lot of tension, a lot of desperation within yourself trying to get it, right? So if the container is too small, okay, then it's not going to be able to receive your huge emotion. And if the object you desire, the container, is too big, then you might not have enough to give towards it. Okay, so sometimes we find ourselves in different positions in life where these are true. The important thing is to not give in to desperation, is to take a step back and remain neutral. So guys, I hope this video was helpful. I certainly made a mess. I probably could have done it a little bit better. Let me know what you thought. I'd like to do like hands-on stuff like this, I think. So I do hope that it resonated in some small way for you guys. All right? Okay guys, we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.